Welcome to Forbidden Planet TV. I'm Andrew Sumner. Look who this is. It's Fabian Nicieza once again. How you doing, mate?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am very well, thank you. And
Good.
Fabian and I were chatting recently about his two epic crime novels, The Self-Made Widow and Suburban Dicks. And you can order both of those from the links attached to the conversation we're about to have about his previous long-term employer, Marvel Comics, who, as part of their omnibus program, are collecting a bunch of things that Fabian has been heavily identified with over the years and involved with. And we're going to start by talking about one of the omnibuses that he's perhaps not as core associated with, but has an interesting history with, and that is the Genis-Vell version of Captain Marvel. So, what can you tell me about your involvement with Genis-Vell, Fabian?
What can I tell you? The character was created by Ron Mars and Ron Lim, appeared in Silver Surfer. He was originally called Legacy, and Marvel decided that they wanted to maintain the Captain Marvel trademark, as they always had to every few
Yeah.
years. So that meant it was time for a new Captain Marvel logo with a trademark symbol on. And Mark Grunwald was that was at a time when Marvel was really fracturing a lot. They had multiple editors in chiefs, and each one had their own fiefdom. And Mark Grunwald's fiefdom was was a lot of the mainstream Marvel characters and the space stuff. So he wanted to do a Captain Marvel series. He wanted to use Genis-Vell as the main character because everyone liked the character a lot. I don't know why he didn't ask Ron Mars to do it, but he asked me to do it. And I wanted to work with Mark because we were very good friends, and I was coming off of X-Men. I was good. Basically, I had either quit or been fired off of every single book that I was writing at that point. So that was like a 1 year and a half process, where I quit Cable, then I quit Night Thrasher, then I quit Nova. Nomad got canceled, but I'd already quit it before it got canceled. I got fired off X-Force, then I quit New Warriors, then I quit X-Men. So I believe Mark might have offered it to me at a time when I had nothing but a couple miniseries that I was doing for Marvel. My brain was fried and I needed a break. And the idea of working on a solo character after multiple team books over multiple years was appealing. The fact that it was a space-based character, I hadn't done that, so getting to write alien stuff was going to be fun for me. And Ed Benes was scheduled to draw it, and I thought he was a pretty talented artist, a pretty talented young artist who was going to evolve beyond the Jim Lee clone phase, which totally did. So it was kind of a no-brainer to say, yeah, let's try it. We didn't expect that it was going to set the world on fire sales-wise. It didn't. But I thought of it as a fun opportunity to write something different. I tried a bunch of different things. A lot of them didn't work, but that's okay because I was getting paid to try stuff out in print. So what the hell? It was Marvel's dime, not mine. So I enjoyed it. I had fun. I had fun writing those issues. I like the character a lot. I still do to this day. I loved what Peter David did his run with the character for so many years. So that happened after Avengers Forever, and
Yeah.
Avengers Forever is really kind of what just turned the dial on the character, mostly um, because the late great Carlos Pacheco gave him such a phenomenal visual, just marrying the original costume to a very different look, and it made him automatically just made him so much more interesting and made readers more curious about him than anything we had done before that. And that Peter got to really run with that and take off with that. I think it was a stronger character and a stronger book by far, things that he worked on, than anything I did.
And that's what I wanted to ask you about, mate, because that run is the backbone of this omnibus edition, and actually you've jumped straight into one of the things that I think is the most memorable about this iteration of the character, is that like Carlos Pacheco look. It is really, it really sticks in your frontal lobe, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, yeah. No, sometimes an artist nails a visual that really helps define or redefine a character and makes it a lot harder for anybody afterwards to try to define or redefine it. Um, our version, Genis-Vell was legacy. Even when I wrote the character, he was legacy. He did not want to be Captain Marvel. So everything he did in little ways was fighting against that, and it was immature ways, like the excessive jackets and hair and a patch on his ass that says "Kiss my Kree ass" and all that kind of stuff. That's just a young man's immature way of fighting against the very name he carries, which is legacy. you know. So by the end of my series, he was already at the point where he was beginning to accept what that legacy was. So for Kurt and Carlos to do what they did with him, Captain Marvel, was a great next step. It was a great transition because we see a person who has already accepted that legacy and is a little more comfortable in their own skin. It's almost like the one we saw was a few years older than the one I wrote, obviously. And then when Peter wrote him, it was back to the same guy I wrote, but in a different context because he had seen what his future looks like and knew that that's what he had to go towards. So all of that, really, I think all of that comes from Carlos's visual as much, if not more than anything else.
Yeah.
Just marrying that original Gil Kane Captain Marvel visual to a tweak that makes it uh, wholly stand on its own. It basically gives any writer looking at it and any artist drawing it and any reader who understands who the character's history, what the character's history is, it automatically gives them an understanding and awareness of what they're looking at and who this person is, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, I think that's extremely well said. Now, this is probably going to go out sometime after you and I are recording it, but we're having this conversation just within a few days of the awful news about Carlos Pacheco passing away. Um, could you just talk a bit about what your take on him and his career?
Well, I never met him personally. I think he might have drawn a few covers of books I wrote, and I think he drew one or two pages of a Superman story that I wrote for DC, but we never met or we never talked. As far as his art is concerned, I think that he was just a phenomenal superhero artist, and also really good at a whole lot of other things. If you read his Arrowsmith,
Yeah, oh yeah, that's
he's
great. It's
defining an
lovely. Yeah,
entire world
yeah,
for you visually and cleanly. And that's the word I would use for him. The strength of his work was how clean it was. It's more from a Alan Davis, John Byrne world than a Jim Lee, Todd McFarlane, Art Adams world. And each of those worlds are wonderful worlds to spend time in, but one has for me one has an elegance of form and style that only the best cartoonists can really manage and navigate.
yeah,
The other one has energy and excitement and detail, but sometimes that's all put in to obscure some of the underpinnings and the foundations of either the anatomy, the storytelling, whatever. And Carlos was, to me, like he was he was that generation's John Byrne,
yeah,
and I say that wholly as a compliment and a positive because a lot of readers who've been around a long time, they think John Byrne 1995, John Byrne 2005, talking about John Byrne, 1979, 1985. I'm talking
yeah.
about
Right,
the man at the height
at
of
his
his
peak.
strength as
Yeah,
a storyteller and having such crisp, clean line work that everything was clearly and visibly understandable, well rendered. It also had energy to it, dynamics to it. Um, he understood emotion, he understood character, he understood storytelling. He knew how to move his camera around. All of these things are so taken for granted by so many readers. I think writers tend to not take that for granted because we know how much better that makes us look. um, and I think Carlos is an artist who made every single writer he worked with look better.
I think that's very well said, mate. And I think, you know, he's absolutely sitting in a room with guys like Byrne, Alan Davis, Wally Wood, that
Yeah.
incredibly clean line, but, you
Yep.
know, beautiful cinematic art at the same time.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah, very, very well said. And thanks for your words on Captain Marvel Genis-Vell, traditionally overlooked, I think, over the last decade or so, but now being collected in this omnibus edition from Mar-Vell. And Fabian, it's always great to see you, brother. I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Good to be seen. Buy that book at the link below.
Right here. Take care, mate. See you soon.
Take care.
If you're enjoying watching Forbidden Planet TV and you're enjoying watching us talk to the world's most interesting and accomplished filmmakers, authors, artists, musicians, creators, subscribe right here. See you soon.